Well, as Child Protection Week draws near to an end, government has been urged by various organizations to expedite the punishment of perpetrators of child abuse. COVID-19 pandemic has highlighted the constitutional rights of many children are being violated, often by the people who should be protecting them. Social Development Department communities have been urged to remain vigilant and to report suspected child abuse. Let's take this discussion further then. We're now joined via Zoom by Afrika Tikkun CEO Alef Meulenberg. Thanks very much for joining us here on the show. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon to you too, and thank you for having me.
You're most welcome. We understand that as a foundation, you have identified violence along with numerous barriers to justice prevent South Africa's children from thriving. Let's talk about your observations and what you're finding.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think what we have realized is that if children do not have a safe situation, and a safe situation from a child protection and safeguarding point of view means a home, a community, a school, a church, if that is not in place, then it will immediately impact the development of a child, both on a physical, emotional, and intellectual level. And down the line, that obviously has results into lower chances of employment, lower chances of getting access to universities. So it's a key issue, not just for now, but also for where the country is going later. So for us, it's very well, we welcome it, that this is a topic that has been discussed at the moment.
Yeah. Is it an issue of the fact that there is a lack of punishment for perpetrators of child abuse? Is that adding to, or I won't say a lack, but not as much as we should be seeing, in terms of punishment of the perpetrators of child abuse? Is that sending the wrong sort of message to would-be perpetrators of child abuse, that there are no, repercussions? Are you finding that that's really adding to the problems that children are facing?
Yeah, no, definitely. And because in the end of the day, if a mom and a child are living with a perpetrator, then where do you go? Especially if the mom and the child are dependent on the salary of that perpetrator. So if there's no quick process and relatively easy process, so to say, to make a case and to also ensure that the perpetrator then gets apprehended and that appropriate justice has been dealt with, then there's really no hope for the victims in this case. Mm-hmm. And the perpetrator won't have to think twice because there are no consequences to the behavior. So that is definitely something that we feel strongly about, and that also from an action perspective, when it comes to legislation and making it easier than for people in general to report these kind of issues. I think that is an absolute key part of this discussion.
Yeah. And then there's also the challenge, and I know there's been a lot of conversation around this, it being Youth Month and also Child Protection Week. One of the major issues that have been raised is that of challenges of child-headed homes. And, when we're talking about child-headed homes, I also then want to bring in the issue of abuse and how these particular homes, those children heading those homes become, more susceptible to abuse. I mean, is this something that is being looked into? If you're a child yourself having to head a home, I can imagine that abuse can really be something that's a reality for those children.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it comes back to the statement that hurt people hurt people. And so if we do not provide psychosocial support to people who are in those homes, both the caregivers and the children in child-headed households, then those are situations that are possible real dangerous situations for children when it comes to child protection. So giving appropriate attention from a social worker perspective, giving tools to children who are heads of a household in child-headed households, in order to deal with younger siblings or younger children that are in the same household, is really important. And providing that those appropriate support systems is exactly what we try to achieve in an Afrika Tikkun setting. But those are things that I think help prevent some of the abuse in those homes, and also again to ensure that there is a reporting mechanism, that if there is abuse, that children know where to report this, or that community neighbors know where to report this. I think those are very key things in order to kind of mitigate those situations.
I mean, you talk about communities, and it's as though you anticipated my next question. We can't necessarily just rely on organizations like yourselves and government and the police when it comes to the protection of children. What can we do, as communities, if for instance, that there's a possibility that a child is being abused? And I think, we're living in a society where people sort of promote this mind your own business, but at the end of the day, what are we supposed to do if we're seeing situations that are, a red flag?
Yeah, I think it comes to an extent down to that the spirit of Ubuntu again, in the sense that I am because we are. And if something is happening in your neighbor's house where you're concerned about, there are organizations where that can be reported to. If you don't feel confident that the police will do something about it, there are organizations in most communities that specifically deal with these type of issues. We are one of them, but there are also other organizations that have attorneys on and psychologists on call whenever something like this, whenever there's a suspected case coming to the fore, that they provide legal counseling and also counseling, psychological counseling, and to say, okay, how do you take this forward? And then they guide you through the process. So I think identifying organizations in your community that deal with this and then reporting it is key. It's a brave step, though, because as much as there is a mind your own business situation, there is still quite a bit of knowledge in the communities as to who reports what. So it is a brave step to do so. But I do think that it's really important for us to be brave around these kind of issues because they have lasting effects.
All right. Alef, it's a pleasure talking to you. Thanks very much to you and the work that your organization is doing. Okay. That is Alef Meulenberg, CEO of Afrika Tikkun.